Hello and welcome to earlymusicsources.com. My name is Elam Rotem, and today, together with Ensemble I Fagiolini, we will demonstrate musical norms from the late 16th century that were considered absurd according to the theorist Vincenzo Galilei. In another episode, we talked about word painting in general, and analyzed a piece from the first half of the 16th century that uses it subtly. In this episode, we will follow a very critical source from 1581, written by a theorist who believed that the way his contemporary composers set text to music, and especially their use of word painting, was a disgrace. His insulting descriptions will be followed by examples from the repertoire, performed by Robert Hollingworth and his ensemble I Fagiolini. Let's see who this bitter writer is and what exactly he disliked so much. Vincenzo Galilei was a composer, lutenist, theorist, and the father of the famous astronomer. In his book from 1581, Dialogo della musica antica e della moderna, he explained how the monodic music of the ancients, the Greeks and Romans, was far superior to the polyphonic music of his own time. How much more stupendous and marvelous must music have been among the Greeks and Romans, where it lasted so many centuries, always in the hands of the wisest, most learned and judicious people. This is in opposition to the polyphonic music of his time, that, according to him, existed only around 150 years, and since the death of Cipriano d'Errore was in a steep decline. His main point is that when several voices sing the words at different times, as is often the case in polyphony, rather than attaining an expression of affects, one gets a big mess of incoherent imperfections. In addition to this general and harsh criticism of practically the entire oeuvre of the period, there was one specific musical means that especially annoyed Galilei: word painting in madrigals. He takes the time to explain in detail the things that he most despises about it. He starts: if a text introduces ideas of fleeing or flying, they, the modern composers, call it imitating the words when they make the music move with such speed and so little grace that just imagining it is enough. We don't need to imagine because we have I Fagiolini singing an excerpt from a contemporary madrigal by Flaminio Tresti, especially for us. Notice the quickness of the notes on the word fuggir, to flee. Vincenzo continues: when the words say disappear, swoon, die, or indeed exhausted, they make the parts suddenly fall silent so abruptly that instead of inducing in listeners corresponding affections, they provoke laughter and contempt, and make them think they are almost being made fun of. It's interesting that an example that fits his description perfectly can be found in a madrigal by the only composer Galilei seems to truly appreciate, Cipriano d'Errore. Rore's madrigal Amor ben mi credevo, which we analyzed in another episode, ends with the words vita spento, extinguished life. It is indeed a very abrupt and unconventional ending. Let's listen to I Fagiolini singing it for us. I guess I always took such repertoire very seriously. But now, looking at it with Galilei's eyes, I can also see how this abrupt ending could make the listeners cringe uncomfortably. His next point is thus: when the words say alone, two, or together, they make one sing alone, or two, or all together, with unaccustomed gallantry. Though slightly later and not Italian, a perfect example for this phenomenon is found in Thomas Wilkes's madrigal As Vesta Was From Latmos Hill Descending. Let's listen.
First 2 by 2, first 2 by 2, then 3 by 3, then 3 by 3 together, leaving the goddess
It seems that such a direct correlation between text and music was considered too banal for Galilei. The next point is quite specific. Composers set this specific line from one of the Sestine of Petrarch. And with the lame ox we will go chasing the breeze, to jerking, undulating, and syncopating notes that make the singers sound as if they had the hiccups. It seems as if he is referring specifically to Orlando di Lasso's rendition of this text from 1567. Let's listen. It's good that Galilei died in 1591, so he didn't live to hear Tiburcio Massaino's version of this text from 1594, which is even jerkier, more undulated, and more syncopated than Lasso's. Another thing that Galilei disliked is when composers tried to imitate the sound of instruments. When the idea of a drum roll or the sound of trumpets or such an instrument comes up, as it sometimes does, they try to represent to our ears this very sound with voices without caring at all that the words are pronounced in a totally outlandish manner. Let's listen to Alessandro Striggio's Non rumor di tamburi o suon di trombe. No roll of drums, no sounds of trumpets.
Non rumor di tamburi o suon di trombe, o suon di trombe, o suon di trombe.
If Galilei disliked this, we can only imagine how he would hate the French chansons from earlier in the century, as these are full with imitations of noises, guns, birds, and whatnot. If you are unfamiliar with the genre, check the footnote for some recommendations. Now, Galilei not only disliked things that were too obvious, he also disliked things that were too symbolic. When they find words denoting a variety of colors, as in dark or white hair and such, they set them to black or white notes to express this idea cleverly and stylishly, expecting the hearing to sense superficial shape or color. In our other episode about word painting, we showed some examples of that. Expression of text in a meaning mainly represented graphically. We showed the blackened notes of Nigra Sum, I am black, by Victoria. But the same idea is repeated again and again well into the era of monodies and duets with basso continuo. Here is a late example of it in a duet by Alessandro Grandi. Galilei continues. In another instance, when the poem says, "He descended into hell into the lap of Pluto," they make some of the voice parts reach so low that the singer, endeavoring to represent someone lamenting, sounds like he wants to frighten and terrorize children, rather than speaking in song. On the other hand, when a text says, "This one aspired to the stars," they ascend to a height that someone who shrieks from extreme internal or external pain could never approach. In the beginning of Luca Marenzio's setting of Giunto alla tomba, we see examples for both going very low on the word tomba, tomb, and of going up on the word ciel, skies. Let's listen. Again, it seems that he disliked the direct and perhaps banal connection between text and music. He didn't find that it helped at all to move any affects, but saw it more as an amusing trick worthy of contempt. At this point, he goes on in less detail about several madrigal clichés. When a word says, as sometimes occurs, weep, laugh, sing, shout, scream, or expressions like false deceit, harsh chains, tough laces, tall mountain, hard reef, cruel woman, or the like, not to mention their size, old-fashioned manners, and the rest, to adorn their impertinent and vain designs, they pronounce the words in the very unaccustomed way of some exotic barbarian. We could now go through countless examples showing what he meant. But really, the things he disliked are the very characteristics of the late 16th century madrigal genre. Across the repertoire, you will find pauses on or around the word sigh, long bellismans on words such as singing, laughing, or flowing, high notes on words such as skies, high, or cry, long dissonant suspensions on any negative word, and so on and so on. Okay, so Galilei hated messy polyphony and straightforward word painting. What did he like? What did he consider to be good? So, Galilei's 1581 publication is mainly non-constructive in his criticism. But his career as a whole, as well as his later writings and works, do point in a certain direction. Throughout his life, he advocated focusing on one melodic part, be it the soprano or the bass, and while this single voice is being sung, the other voices were to be played as an accompaniment. His ideas, together with those of a group of other musicians and intellectuals, led the way eventually to the new monodic repertoire of around 1600, or if you wish, to the birth of the opera. Sadly for Galilei, he did not live long enough to see how the concept of monody, with an accompaniment in the form of basso continuo, became the most common vocal genre, minimizing the importance of the old polyphonic style. Despite Galilei's disdain for messy polyphony, he did not abandon it completely. In the last years of his life, around the 1590s, he wrote some drafts for a counterpoint treatise. In it, he goes against his teacher Zarlino and demands that some of the counterpoint rules be loosened up, rules which were, in his opinion, unnecessarily strict. Notice, this has nothing to do with his ideas about monodies. This is in the context of common polyphony. Some scholars see this writing as the only source that discusses the new counterpoint school of the time, referred to today as the Seconda Pratica. This is to be seen in connection with the treatise Monteverdi promised to write about it in 1605, but sadly never did. Interestingly, Galilei didn't only write about counterpoint, but also published 2 books of polyphonic madrigals. Unfortunately, of the 2 books, only the second one survived, and was not fully edited and published by the creation date of this video. From the little I have seen of the music, it is quite interesting and indeed different from other madrigals of the time. Still, it contains very dense and messy polyphony, something that he condemned at length in his 1581 book. So, either he changed his mind over time, or he was just inconsistent like most humans. This was our show about Vincenzo Galilei and his dislike of word painting and polyphony. We hope you enjoyed it. Many thanks to Robert Hollingworth and Aoife Giolini for singing for us.
Our pleasure.
Actually, Robert is running a fantastic YouTube series analyzing vocal pieces called Sing the Score. Robert, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, Sing the Score is a YouTube series looking at pieces of mostly Renaissance vocal music. First of all, there's a little bit of history, then we look under the car bonnet, see how the piece is put together, a bit of analysis, and then a sing-along with an online score. It's the only place you'll find Monteverdi and Monty Python side by side, and it also features increasingly bizarre appearances of the terrifying music of Ficta Police. Performance coming up with the score specially set on the software Dorico. You can sing along.
Find Sing the Score on YouTube or at efegelini.com/singthescore. New episodes coming soon.
Look it up.
That is awesome, Robert. Thank you. Don't forget to check the special page on our website with all the footnotes and other extra information. If you enjoy Early Music Sources, consider supporting it on Patreon. Comment, share, and like. See you next time at earlymusicsources.com.